Have you ever used an app that you really, really liked? Think maybe Instagram, Google, and things like that. And have you checked out some websites? I'm not going to name any names that are super frustrating. I was still on one yesterday. No secrets, it was a government website. But today, we're going to talk about what makes the difference between good user experience and bad user experience. And Matthew has built his career making sure that technology works for people and sucks less for people. He's worked at major companies and corporations, and it was recently named on AfroTech's Future 50 list. He's also a content creator. And today he'll be talking about all of the different things in technology. So if you're looking to break into UI, UX, or excited about anything technology, then I'm sure you're going to be really excited to be talking to Matthew today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. That was a great intro.
Yeah, for sure. So the first question where I usually like to start, is what made you choose tech?
Yeah. Whew. It's funny because I think in some ways I feel like tech almost chose me.
Mm,
And I want to. There's a nuance there because it's really like design first, right? I think I ended up in tech proper, but my foundation was in graphic design, digital media, new media, from a very young age. I had the opportunity of going to a STEM program in junior high school, and that kind of exposed me to like early internet, Photoshop, HTML, like the basics. And I was always fascinated by that. When I went away to school, I didn't really see it as a career necessarily.
mm,
And fun fact, I went to RIT to be an applied mathematics major. And so
mm.
I thought I was going to go into finance or something like that. I ended up realizing that it wasn't for me. And I switched over to new media shortly after. And then, kind of like things built from there. I graduated, came back to the city and was working from there. So I think that creativity was always in me. And I think that the way that the world went in terms of technology and design and how much digital media changed the world opened up the lane for me to pursue it as a real career.
It's interesting that you say that because I think, of course, my career journey is not too dissimilar from that. But I think that when I think back to it now, because many people have different answers, like it was gaming, or you kind of like went down that path. But I think what really got me excited about technology was social media, right? I remember
Mm-hmm.
like it went from Facebook to Twitter, and then it started to just turn into this thing where like you could buy and sell online. That there were possibilities that you didn't really see before that just started to open up just because of this technology. So what was that? Did it play out for you that same way?
In some ways it did. And then maybe it's funny that it's funny that you mentioned that your plug was the social media era. Not to date myself, but I started a little bit prior to that. The early internet was really the information age, right? Like search, Google, like being able to like get knowledge online, right? And then kind of like the transaction piece, like the e-commerce, the buying and the selling, the early eBay days, like that was there. Then like of course online gaming, stuff like that. Then came social media. And if you started with Facebook, but I remember, early MySpace and all of that was where really like started kicking off. So I would say there was a thread. Every aspect of those different eras kind of like compelled me. I think I was always fascinated with, how to create things that people would interact with and get joy out of, or even just find fun. Gaming was an angle of it. It wasn't always just pure problem solving. It was just really just like, how can I create something that is going to compel people to, um, engage with the world through digital.
Hmm. And that's such a powerful way to look at it, right? Like figuring out a way to make people interact with this whole new world, if you like. Um, but to kind of like bring it back, right? You mentioned like graphics design because I want to kind of like set it apart for people who may not know, right?
Sure.
What is the difference between like traditional graphics design and like UI UX design, or product design as people tend to call it now?
Yeah. So it's an interesting distinction. And I think that there's a lot of different nuances. Even within the world of UX, there are nuances. But the
Mm,
fundamental difference between pure graphic design and
mm,
UI UX design is graphic design is more static. Like you use
Mm,
graphics within your UX design, but graphic design is more when you go back to like logos, iconography, typography, grid systems. Graphic design is really the foundation of design, the foundation through which UX builds off of. My early like first year in design school, we're learning graphic design foundation principles, right? Like you
mm,
have to understand the core of what it means to design, to communicate to people, poster design, logos, things like that. And then UI UX is where it becomes interactive. So when I went to school for
mm.
new media, that was the study of, or really like the practice of designing things for screens and designing things that people actually interact with, as opposed to just visually looking at or reading.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So, again, to maybe break it down to like even like the basic level, right?
Yeah,
What does that distinction really mean? Because you say static, you say, maybe more dynamic, but what does it really mean? Like, because if you think about it, like to me, just the average user,
yeah.
how do I differentiate and protect, and even more importantly, for somebody looking to go into that field, how do they kind of like make that decision, or kind of like come to that conclusion, like I'm coming to the right place, or I'm making the right decision?
Yeah, like kind of like pick your path. Like, how do you know like which is your sweet spot for you?
Mm,
Yeah. Um, Graphic design, if you like posters, print media, um, typography, business cards, uh, things that are more graphic in nature. I don't like it's like that is the fundamental principle. If you think about a logo, like designing a logo is much different than designing like an app. Like it requires a different part of the brain. You're actually solving for different things. Communication design, like the design of even like typesetting a book, right? Like those are
mm,
things you're solving different problems.
mm,
UI UX design, the problem that you're solving is presenting someone with an interactive experience that they're going to engage with and go through and experience unto
mm,
itself. Graphic design tends to be rooted more in the visual and understanding of something that's not necessarily interactive.
mm. And I know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, however, though, like really, really good UI UX design still has to leverage graphic design as a
Mm,
principle, right? Because like when
mm,
you open up your favorite app, like it looks good, right? So there's the experience piece in how you kind of like bring people through the app, what the landing page looks like, what the different settings are, how do you go from page to page, how do you send a message? Like all of those things are a user experience designer has to think about,
mm.
but they still need to leverage their understanding of graphic design to make sure that that experience looks and feels easy, seamless, delightful, etc.
Yeah. I know like we're not streaming to YouTube, and sorry to anyone who's on there who can't find the stream. For some reason, like the streaming app isn't working correctly tonight, but I'm sure you guys are getting us on X, on LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere else. But something I wanted to touch on to kind of like bring that back, because I really like where you were taking it, and I'm really really enjoying this,
Yeah.
because I think there's one element, and not to kind of like say one is better than the other, but this is kind of like how I perceive it, right? I think with traditional design, for people thinking about it, right, you you had many opportunities to get something right, right? So, for example, let's take poster designs or some of the other examples you gave. But once it's out in the world, that's it, right? The beauty of UX design, or more modern design, or technology driven design, if you like, it's that it's iterative, right? Like nothing is finalized, because the devices themselves are very live, whether it's your mobile, PC, wherever, whatever other platform that you're experiencing this design through. And I think that has in itself has brought many exciting things, right? Where now it's not even about what's the best design, but it's like what's the best design that resonates with the audience the most. Because a lot of the time, as a designer, you're also a tastemaker, right? And that
100%.
has both its both its good parts and its drawbacks. Good part is that you can basically dictate or shape the world as you see it. Bad part is the world may not vibe with your vision of it. UX design gives you that opportunity to be able to like say do things like A/B testing to say, you know what, these are the cool two things that we think are cool, what works and what doesn't. Where are people getting stuck in this journey? Oh, we
Yeah.
noticed that there's a drop off here, and like how do we correct that? But I think something else that I like is also like even that journey process, because typically that's not very thought about a lot in the traditional sense. But for example, if you design like a homepage now, you can see it maps like, oh, this are where people are looking the most. Maybe the colors are brighter there, so maybe we need to put the key information there, move this web page around, or
Mhm.
try it differently. And
Yeah.
you can take it all the way far out to like things like Netflix, where we might be looking at the same movie, right, but we're not looking at the same experience. Why? Because maybe I tend to like darker aesthetics, so I like horror movies, and you're showing me the experience that way. Whereas if somebody else comes into that vision, they're seeing something new. So those are some
Yes.
things that just excites me about the discipline in general.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you touch on a lot of good points there, and it's true. Um, UX design or product design, anything interactive, yes, you do have the ability to learn more in the moment. You have more like real time feedback around what people are liking and not liking, and you're able to use those learnings to personalize the experience 100%. But I also do want to add the nuance of that happens on the graphic design side as well, just in different ways. So, like,
Mm.
UI and UX is more dynamic in terms of the learning. I think Netflix is a fantastic example, right? Where like your literal homepage, the thumbnails that they show you are, based on what you've watched, based on what they think you'll like, etc. So things like that do happen. But in traditional design, it may not have been up to the minute, but there was always some sense of what was resonating with people. Like they would do, case studies, and you would do like research, and you would bring people in. Like if you were designing, and this is both like we use the example of logo design, but even like interior design, right? Like you can bring people into a space and say, like, is this the way that we want this space to feel? Is this the energy that we want this, Apple store to convey, right? All of those are still very intentional choices that happen when it comes to how you design in all
Mhm.
aspects of design. And so while UI and UX, of course, yes, that since it is interactive and since the scale of people using it is so big that you're able to get a lot of those learnings. Um, there are other aspects of design that still require your ability to understand whether it's resonating with people or not.
That's true. And I remember
Yeah,
focus groups too, right? Like,
absolutely.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. So design has always been tested. It's just that we have way more tools and it's like way much quicker than it used to be. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
So one of the things a lot of the people who watch, working in tech are on their path, on the journey to getting their first ever opportunities in tech.
Mhm.
For you, what did that look like? Like what was your first tech job like? And how did you get it?
Yeah. Okay. So Google, actually, where I am now, is my first tech job. So the majority of my career, I was on the brand and agency side. Like when I came out of school, I was at a modeling agency. I was at IMG. Like you said, I was at Marvel, L'Oreal. I ran the gamut in terms of like different aspects of the industry, but more media, entertainment, consumer products, like big brand um, type organizations, all like, large conglomerates, but not necessarily what we consider big tech, if you will, like the Googles, the Facebooks, Apples, etc., Amazon. And so um, I'm here now. It's a very different world. I would say that working in tech. So that's the thing. You can be a UI UX designer and not work in tech.
You
There's
can
many
be a
ways to do it.
technologist and now work
You
in
don't
a
have to work
technology company.
in a technology company, yeah, and that's where I was most of my career. So in 2020, I transitioned, and we can talk about that too if you want to, like the pre-tech days. But no, in 2020, I started at Google, and how I got it, the power, and this is the power of the network is very very strong. I I got a ping one day in the middle of COVID. Uh, went like still locked down, quarantine, COVID in the house. And a product manager that I worked with many, many years ago was like, yo, I think I have this opportunity you may be a good fit for. Um, and then I kind of went in, I met with the hiring manager, met with the recruiter. But by no means did it mean that I just got the, the alley. Like it was a cosign, but it wasn't just a slam dunk. Like I had to meet that opportunity with preparedness. And that's probably one of the things that I want. One of the main things we'll talk about today that I want people to take away from this. Like your opportunities, like when the door opens, you got to be ready to walk through it. Like when your blessings come, you still got to meet it for what it is. When I spoke with that recruiter, she gave me 3 weeks and she told me, she said, um, the Google interview process goes like this. You're going to meet with a panel of executives, 5 to 6 executives. You're going to have an hour-long presentation to them, and then you're going to go into individual one-on-one sessions with those people for an hour. So essentially, what felt like a full work day um, in the interview process. But those 3 weeks I took, I redid my portfolio. I put that presentation together. I practiced with tons of people, like even just on lap, just talking to people. I made sure that when I walked through, or when I signed on to that interview, that I was giving them exactly what they were looking for, at least putting my best foot forward. So that's how Google came about, like quite literally. But I would, definitely look at opportunities, apply, use your network yourself into places. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it, but that's just my own how I personally got to Google.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting, right? Because I even like the analogy that you got. You got cosign, but no, in no way did that just mean the opportunity.
Right.
So for thinking about like the model of thinking about even getting that big break, I like what you kind of like what you and I were talking about earlier about how newbies coming into the industry to think about getting opportunities in the industry. We know tech is a lot tighter and harder to get into now,
Mhm.
but it doesn't mean that the opportunity is gone. So how does someone look into breaking into tech in 2025 to think about it? Because it's not 2021 no more, right?
You're right. Yeah, it's a completely different world. It's a completely different animal. And there's nuances around. I mean, look, we can talk about the state of the world forever, right? Like there's a lot going on. And so the climate is different, yes. But I want people to worry less about the climate or the opportunities that you perceive to be there, and more about your own skill set and the presentation of your own skill set and how you're showing that to the world. Like you have to, it's less about getting your foot in the door and more about fortifying yourself and your talent so that when the door is there, you're able to either walk through it or kick it open. Right. And so how I would do that today, if I was like, say, coming out of, like, even if I didn't go to school, right? If I was just a younger person, I'm still young. If I was a younger person trying to break into the industry, I would, um, if you like, say if you're starting from scratch, you gotta lean in, you gotta learn. It's the accessibility to knowledge today is unlike anything that we've ever seen before. Like I can tell you, like, oh, go learn Figma. I can tell you the tactical things, but it's really about, you know, being curious, going out into the world. There's so many opportunities and so many different avenues to learn. You can go to something like, I mean, Google has a UX certification that you can get like through Coursera and stuff like that. You can do more formal certification stuff. You could go on YouTube and watch videos, right? Like you can practice. I think so much is about um, putting kind of like pen to paper, if you will. And when you learn something, try it. Like start to build your own things. Even if you're not working in a company, look at the world and see what problems you want to solve, right? And then I used to do mock redesigns. Like say if there was like, let's take the Instagram app, for example. Like if you could redesign Instagram, what would you make it look like? Do that as like your own personal project and then show that to the world. What you want to do is be able to convey your ability to problem solve and add your spin on things and demonstrate that to people. So create a portfolio. And even if you're not like a content creator and like want to be like on Reels and on TikTok, I do encourage people to have some way of getting their work out there. Like it's not going to like come find you. You have to like let the world know that you are building these things and designing these things and being proactive with making yourself visible.
You know, you said so many things there that I definitely want to unpack it, right? The
Sure.
first one that I see that is very key, there was a report that came out yesterday where they're talking about fake employees, right? Because
Mm.
before what we were talking about was fake jobs, ghost jobs,
Mhm.
jobs that these companies will post for whatever reason, whether they're trying to like, get some kind of like government benefit or whatever the case may be. I don't know why they post ghost jobs, but they do.
Mm.
Now you're seeing the flip side of that with ghost candidates, where fake people, for whatever reason, too, they're applying to jobs. In some cases, they're saying they're sending those applications in to, you know, test vulnerabilities in the company's system. So they're putting bugs and things like that within those applications. So there's a
Mm.
lot of interesting thing going on in the world. But I think that shows that there's a lot of mistrust and distrust in the system, that showing up as yourself, just the way you were saying, like put yourself out there, I think that solves a big part of that challenge. Because if somebody's seen you, they've seen your post on LinkedIn, they see you talk about this project you're working on,
Yep.
there's a chance you might still be a butt, but that chance isn't very high. Like when you just send in an application, but I haven't seen or you before. So are you connecting
Yeah.
with recruiters? Are you sharing your work? Are you
Yep.
I literally remember, like, we used to run a nonprofit where we train people different tech skills. UI design was one of them. And one of our students got a job only because he posted a certificate online. Mind you, this certificate isn't backed by anything. We just gave them like completion certificates just so they could feel good about themselves.
Sure.
Showing that by itself got him a job.
See?
So showing up is really important. And there was another one that you said that I think is even more key. See, in 2021, just what we're talking about, it was like 2001, right?
Yeah.
Their moms were getting jobs in tech. But even then, there were people who didn't get jobs in tech. So even though it was a free for all, it wasn't free for all. So at the end of the day, even in 2025, no matter how challenging it is, there's still people out there getting offers every single day.
Yeah.
To that point that you make, focus on yourself, focus on your skills, because the competition may be very tough. But even in that tough competition, where are you? Are you in the top 10? Are you in the top 20?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, because there's rankings to it. And like you have to give yourself the best opportunity. You can't control how good or bad the job market is, but you can control how good you are. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that you touched on, that I didn't want to lose it, because those were all straight facts.
Yeah, no doubt. Um, yeah.
So in terms of this core skill sets that it takes to become, oh, no, before we go there, actually,
Mhm.
part of the things that we talk about, experience, design, and all those things, there's almost like two parts to like being a product designer or being a UI UX designer, right? There's the
Mhm.
actual design piece, but there's even a part that doesn't require you to design, correct?
There is yeah, they have well, no, if designer is in your name, then you need to design. Yeah, yeah, I think that yes, for sure. But I mean, like there needs to be some output, 100%. But I think yes, if you're talking about there is a strategic piece, and you talk like leaning more toward like product thinking and like strategy. Yes, like that is something that I always want people um to acknowledge. I think it goes under acknowledged sometimes, right? Like even if we think about like the framing, like if someone were to ask me a question like how to become a UX designer, I think that there's like tactical ways to do that, right? Learn the tools, practice, like that's how you do it. But I think the underscore of that is your curiosity and your understanding of the world and your understanding of the things that people are doing today. What are people interested in? What are people having problems with? Where are there opportunities to make something easier? Like design, those types of like product design thinking is really where the root of design actually is. Design is problem solving at the end of the day.
Mm,
And even if you know, all the different tools. You're really good. You need to know the foundation design principles, right? So
mm,
type, grids, like interaction patterns, even like the glossy, like making things look beautiful, adding like micro interactions and all the pretty animations. All of those things are like tactical outputs that are actually informed by and founded by the problem that you're solving, right? Like
mm.
all of that doesn't exist unless you have a goal in mind and a problem that you're trying to solve or a solution that you're trying to bring to market. And so I think that I always want people to understand like both pieces of the pie. It's not enough, especially today, to just be like a good designer. You need to be strategic. You need to be curious. You need to be visionary, insightful, um, provocative, be able to poke holes in things, even and like never take anything at face value either, right? Like, what if, even if you are presented with a solution to something, like, is this the best way to do it? Like, even like say if you are in tech and your manager's like, all right, so this is the way we're going.
Mm,
All right, but is that the way that we should go? Like, you should be comfortable asking those questions. And you
mm,
should have it within you, like in your energy, you should want to ask those questions to
mm.
get to the best solution.
So it's interesting. Like I would never, to not even insult like the practice of design. I would never call myself a designer, but I do feel like I'm a designer, right?
Yeah.
I don't have any of the technical skills, but just for context, like I used to run a auto fashion brand, right? So I design things. I didn't
Sure.
do the designing, but like if I see it, I know it. I'm that
Mhm,
type of designer, right?
mhm, mhm.
And so working with designers, like I've had a lot of friction sometimes. And the question is, just like you said, you have to be able to push back. But on the flip side, what should, especially someone who wants to be a designer, a lot of the times you're going to deal with, entitled, uneducated, not uneducated in terms of education, but uneducated in this design things that you talk about, like
Yeah,
grids and things. So it's like, no, there's no way I can put it there. It doesn't even work there,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I feel like I
Well,
just triggered you.
no, I mean, not even that. I think maybe just a little bit, just a smidge. No, it's because it's accurate. And that's also, you raise a point where when we talk about the skills, right? The hard skills and the soft skills, um, being a competitive designer, but even just working in the creative space in any capacity, um, aside from the tools, I want people to also lean into those complementary skills like storytelling, like um, being able to convey strategic thinking, right? Being able to connect your solution to business goals, right? Even
Mm,
like understanding like improv and thinking on the spot, like, even having a certain presence or charisma about you. Like, these are things that when you're navigating the landscape in not only being a designer, but conveying the value of your designs, those kind of like secondary skills actually make you more well-rounded and make you more prepared to not only do the design but push it over the finish line and back it in real basis and meaning and value.
mm, mm. You say all of the good things, and the reason why I ask is even to make it a bit more real. I like the fact that you said business goals, right? Because there's some things that are just like design perfect, right? Like if we want to just take a pure design view, like this is the best way to do it. But sometimes maybe there are commercial things that we have to think about. So maybe
Oh
we're like in a country in the Middle East where certain things we can't really do. So
yeah. Mhm.
now we our design is not free anymore. Like we have to constrict it within a certain context,
Yes.
or we want to sell it, and to be able to sell this thing, it has to. We have to put this ugly things, quote unquote, in there,
Mhm.
maybe to make our sponsors happy or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, oh my god, I just want this thing to be pretty. So how do you deal with all of that? And then sometimes it's also practical because I have seen, I remember like working with almost like a video, not, it wasn't even me directly. So a videographer was working with someone, right? And the person had like this very clear vision about what they wanted to be included. But the
Mhm.
videographer had a very minimalistic design around how they wanted to approach it.
Yeah.
So there was like this head button that was going on. It's like you're killing the design. But it
Mhm.
turns out that when they actually implemented it, the design was actually better. So not only did it meet the customer's goal, it became clearer. Like the concept they were trying to convey became clearer as because they implemented this extra element that they didn't even want to put there in the first place.
Mm. Mhm.
Right. So it's like,
Yeah.
how do you manage, that kind of like being defending your work, right? I know
Yeah.
like no designer struggles with that, right? Because that's your baby. But also being able to take on feedback at the same time.
Yeah, lots and lots of compromise, right? I think that, and you also hit on a couple different things that I think I want to distinguish. One, like when you're talking about like globalization and just certain things like that may happen with users in different parts of the world, yeah, like there are considerations that you have to have that actually you should have when it relates to making sure that your product is understood and it resonates in different regions, different language barriers, whatever the case may be. So that's like one aspect of it, like when you're just designing at a global scale and the different cultural or local nuances that you got to incorporate to make that a success.
Mm.
That's one piece. But I think the other part of what you may be talking about is just like, when, a marketer, a marketing, head of marketing comes and says like, make the logo 3 times as big as it is, right? Or something like that. Or like, where's the tagline? Or when like legal comes and they're like, we need 6 paragraphs of fine print, like at the bottom. And it's like those types of things. Yes, like it can be, it's tough, like I think that's when you start to say to yourself, but then there is also like there's a happy medium that you need to bridge, because again, if you are, because it's not all just about making it pretty, right? And so if there is an actual uh amount of clarity or value or even legal implications as to why you're being asked to alter a design of yours, I think that you need to like take those on and understand that that's now part of the brief, right? So like
Mm.
we may say like, oh, well, it looks good as it is. All right, but you haven't finished the job, because the job that we need you to do actually has 6 paragraphs of legal fine print on it. You know what I mean? And so there's like ebbs and flows. And I think that you can, it's very case by case. There are some things that there really will not be a bend on. And particularly, not to point fingers, but those types of experiences, typically in my experience, have come from either legal or marketing that will severely alter the intention that you may have had around the design. But
Mm.
you take it in stride.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I've been in many of those conversations, so I could relate, and which is why I was really excited to discuss it with you.
Yeah.
um, so, um, going from agency to like entertainment now to tech, what are
Right.
some of the uh I want to say like common threads? I know like they're all different worlds, but what are some of the
Mhm.
common threads that you kind of like experience in those different worlds? And what can like, the upcoming design professional take from those lessons?
Yeah. Um, let's see. I guess the common thread is probably going to be more based in the discipline, right? Like the actual skills and the tools that you need to succeed. It's probably the most primary common thread, right? So like um Figma is Figma everywhere you go. Like the ways that you solve problems, the way that you do research, the way that you look at your data, the fact that you even have a North Star metric that is your key metric that you're trying to aim toward, like those types of nuances are the common thread. I do think that the differences are, the reason for being, like the reason why design is a part of the organization changes. I think when you're on the brand side, the design folks, the design team is is almost complementary to the plight of the business. The design team may not be the core aspect of the business. For example, when I was at L'Oreal, I was on the e-com team, the digital products team that was in the luxury division. We were responsible for all of the e-commerce sites for all the luxury brands. So like YSL, Armani Beauty, all that stuff like that. Now, like YSL and Armani Beauty, their business is to sell lipstick and fragrances and beauty products, right? Like their business isn't the app or the site that we build in and of itself isn't the business, right? Like whereas Instagram, for example, that maybe just to use it as an example, like the app itself is the generation of the revenue. On the agency side, on the brand side, you're typically using digital and using digital products to bolster an experience that is really in service of the true nature of the business, which in L'Oreal's case, it was to sell products, right? Like my digital product was a purchase vehicle. And we had to do that in strategic
Mhm.
ways. We had to do that in ways that were on brand and compelling and interesting and fun and delightful and easy and technically sound, right? But the site itself, in and of itself, was not the product. Whereas like if you're building like a game, for example, the game itself is the product. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And you have to put those. I definitely agree with that because I think the challenges, even though they're similar, but they're still different. It's the same, but it's different, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Because on
Yeah,
the one end, like if it's an end on and of itself, I think it takes a different thinking. But if it's a means to an end, you always have to kind of like figure out ways to nudge people towards the goal, right?
mhm,
Understand that
mhm.
that's not in the goal in and of itself, and figuring
Yeah,
out creative ways to kind of like capture that. But you don't want somebody to be stuck in this world. You still want them to go take action, essentially, right? Like, so
yeah,
is that going to shop online or going in store? Like, how is it driving that goal? And
correct.
those are kind of like the problems that you have to think around.
You do. And you also have to be able to speak toward your contribution to those problems, right? Like it's not okay for me to say, like, we can go back to L'Oreal in the e-commerce world, me and my team should be able to speak to like, okay, the big, we had to sell X million dollars this year, and the site that we made drove X percentage of that bigger goal, right? So
Mm.
it's not just like, oh, I made the website and it's easy and it looked good. It's like, okay, you did it, but what did that piece add to what we actually care about, which is the bottom line? And so as a designer, you have to be able to connect those dots as too. Like it's your responsibility to make sure that you're understanding and can speak to the value that your work is bringing to the organization.
Yep, I like that. And it's a nice segue to the next place I want to go because you
Okay.
mentioned like the design on the site is driving. You make designs, you don't build websites, which means that you have to work in tandem with other people. So, how
Yes.
should people be thinking about collaboration? Because if you think about design itself, of course, it can be a full scale like on its own. It could be a la carte, but it
Mhm.
hardly ever is, right? It's usually a buffet.
Yeah.
How do you work well? And I think this, because again, we talk about the hard skills and the soft skills, right?
Mhm.
Soft skills are one of the things that make you great in tech in general. But I think even in some roles, it's crucial. You touched on things like storytelling, being able to stakeholder management. There's multiple things like that. Because sometimes when people even resist you, they're not resisting the work, they're resisting you, right? So how does one, what are some of the things that are helpful for a young professional coming up to start understanding about just the nature of the job? Because sometimes
Yeah.
if you have friends, just like you said, right, it helped you, you had a cosign, right?
Mhm.
That may not be everything, but it's a lot, right?
Yes.
So what are those skills that, outside of the core design skill, people need to start building?
Yeah. So collaboration is going to be huge, especially in tech. I mean, on the brand and agency side, it is as well, but especially in tech, you need to be able to collaborate with your cross-function partners um, and work together to solve those problems. Um, and that's kind of like baked into the operating model. Like you actually you can't find success on your own. Even if you wanted to, it's not going to work because there's so many different dependencies on other people. So it's about on that side of things, it's about understanding um, how to partner and what you need from other people, right? Like you have to work with your product managers because you need to work with them on the strategic pieces. How are we connecting this design to the business goals? Like those conversations help you define that. You have to be close to your end partners because you need to understand the feasibility of our ability to build something, right? I can build this crazy design, but like, can you actually make it happen, right? Or what I'm envisioning is possible today, or do we need extra time to do it? Those types of things actually fortify your ability to make a design that truly matters, right? So on the tech side, I think is that. When you talk about on the brand side, you have to partner with the people who can help you be successful, and you need to understand, but you do that by understanding what they care about, right? So when I was at Marvel, for example, like Marvel.com. We redid Marvel.com. And there's a publishing team, there's a studios team, there's an animation team, there's a consumer products that are making like toys and all that stuff like that. Each one of those organizations had different desires for what Marvel.com needed to do for their part of the business. And so my team had to go and understand what their needs were and make sure that those were represented in the new website that we were making, right? That
Mm.
required collaboration, bridge building, understanding what they need and where they're coming from helps you make your designs better. And lastly, not to be long-winded, but I think it's
No,
important.
no, go ahead.
You also need to, it helps you speak to what understanding what they care about helps you speak to the value of your design. If I went to, the head of publishing and I'm telling him about what we're doing for studios, he's like, that's great. Like, looks good. But why do I care? Like what does that actually do for me? Right. So like you got to be able to tailor your presentations and tailor your conversations around what that person, what that executive, what that team is actually what's at the forefront of their mind. Because if you check off their boxes, they're more willing to vouch for the work more holistically, right? Like they'll say, "Oh yeah, Matt did a great job on that site," because selfishly, all their problems are solved. They're like, "Yeah, I love it. Matt's great. Give me more," But like, you have to be able to play that game and dance around and do what you need to do. So that's why collaboration and understanding who you're working with is very, very important.
To be honest, I think this is one of the more tactical and practical like working tech sessions because we're really getting in there, and I really enjoy it because I think that last piece you said, I think it answered my question about are they resisting your work or are they resisting you? Because a lot of times I think if you show consideration for people, they'll show consideration for you,
Yes.
even when the work isn't all the way there. They'll be like, Matt always takes care of us. Yeah, yeah, it's good, it's good. Don't worry about it. Because at the end of the day, it's like a nitpick. But what makes people nitpick the nitpick a lot of times, it's like, oh, I remember like that one time we said we wanted this. And it's like, there's no way you could do that. So yeah, that's not acceptable. You see
Yeah.
what
Yeah. Being likable goes a very long way.
it does.
Being likable, being easy to work with, and being talented is
Yeah.
the
Oh
sweet spot.
yeah. Oh yeah, being talented. Yeah, that part is it's key. I always reference like these companies like culture memo, and that's a big thing. It's like, you know, talent is something that people and maybe not talent, but like great work. And that's the thing. It's like, of course, if you know, like if you're limited in what you know, then do what you know. But once you know better, you have to do better, right? And like
Yeah.
you have to always strive to do better because again, like skill and talent will always make way for you. Like if it's great work, it's great work. Like people can see that a mile away. And I don't think like it's any more evident in any role than in design.
Yeah. There's proof. There's tangible proof always, right? And that's what it's interesting because then everyone has because if you think about an engineer, people people mostly care like does it work or does it not work, like the nuance of like what code you use to make it work is like the average person is not interested, but the average person will have an opinion on the way something looks. Like, this is ugly, I don't like this, why did they do it this way, this is hard to use. Like, those things are way more eye level for judgment. And so you got to stay on your toes in terms of like defending and being able to speak to the choices that you make, for sure.
And to even drive it one step further, like, you know, it's interesting, like, the closer you are to certain things, the better right? Like, I remember, like, having in my past life, being a musician, like, I would listen to beats, for example, and like the average person can hear the things that I hear in those beats, right? I could hear the string because I've been in the studio when somebody's like layering those different elements, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the average person doesn't know, but they still know when the music is great or not, right?
Yes.
So those technical things that you're talking about, the grids, the colors, the layering, all of those stuff, if you do it wrong, the average person can tell you that you did it wrong, or they can tell how you did it wrong. But when
Yes.
they see it, they know it's wrong.
Yes. Yes. 100%. And what I love about that description is because um what often makes people better designers is being able to tap into different facets of creativity, right? Like, you just used a music example that has like layers that tie to how someone would design something. I think about even something like cooking could have that same thing. Like a recipe, like the nuance of an ingredient could change the taste of something
Yep.
that the average person is like, I don't know what flavor it is, I just think it tastes good. But like the professional chef knows, like, no, it tastes good because I did this and this and that, and without that, it wouldn't have been the same. Like, those same things apply, and I love that, because that to me is what really demonstrates like the power of creativity and like making of things, right? Like you can make in a bunch of different industries. And I think music is a great one for sure.
And I like your cooking example because now I I remember like a cooking disaster that happened when I was in college, right?
Yeah.
So to that point, the ingredients definitely matter, but even the order. So jollof rice, for example, there's this guy who was trying to make it, and he wondered like why they saute like all of the different like ingredients first, to kind of like get it cooking before they put the
Hmm.
rice in. So it's like, you know what? I don't care. I'm just gonna do it all at once. And then it turned out to be a complete disaster.
Yeah.
So not only does the ingredients even matter, like if you're nitpicking, like even the order in which you go in with
The
everything matters.
process.
The process,
Absolutely.
right?
100%.
And that's where
Yeah.
mastery comes in, right? Because you can't cheat the process.
Nope. Nope. You can't cheat the process, but also from a design perspective, and like say for like an emerging designer, I want people to take away that not only can you not cheat the process, but it's also okay to be wrong, right? Like your first couple tries aren't going to be amazing, and that's all right. Like you need to design, get it in front of people, get some reactions, do some user testing. Like I want people to be able to understand what it means to like fortify yourself in this
Mm,
industry and know that it's not always going to be a slam dunk. And
mm,
you need to do some trial and error. You need
mm,
to get, you know, even when I was in undergrad, like we used to have crits, we used to have to hang stuff on the wall, and like your professor would like tear it down. Like, this is awful, right? And it could be painful at first, but it thickens your skin, right? Like it makes you be like, all right, cool. So like what I'm gonna do next time, or like what can I learn from that? Like there's a certain level of like intentionality and almost like the ability to persevere that is
mm,
necessary, and
mm,
also the ability to not take things personally
mm.
um when you're working in design or any creative industry, but specifically things that like are visual that can be judged by the average person for sure. Yeah.
Another element that I almost saw, which I was why where I even thought you were going with it initially, is that like of course you can break the rules, right? You can break the rules, you can bend the rules, but only when you know the rules, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because that's the difference between a master and like the opposite of what master is, right?
Yeah.
Because when a master is at work and they break the rules, maybe they use a color wrongly or they do it the way it's not supposed to be done, on the knowledge of how it's supposed to be done, it's a very different element than like if you don't even know it, because
Yeah.
they may break five rules, but have they
Yeah.
set other like mitigating factors here that
Yes.
kind of like catch that?
Yes.
But because they know how it works so well, they've been able to
Hmm.
fix it in a million different ways.
Yeah.
But you haven't, and that comes from trial and error. It goes back to the process. Like if you've broken enough things, then you know like the ways not to break them. But you can
Yeah.
still break them many other ways and
Yeah.
still get it to work.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you also, and then even just to take it a step further, maybe less specific to UX, but just like creativity. If you're designing something to, you know, help someone or convey a certain energy or convey a certain message, sometimes that broken rule is done so intentionally because you want them to react to it. Sometimes you want it to feel off kilter. Like you want it to feel broken, because even that will probably stimulate what it is that you want them to react to, right? Going back to the music example, you talk about like, you know how I forget the name, but you like those chords that are like intentionally
Yeah,
like rough, like
exactly.
they want it to feel slightly uncomfortable. That's the intention. It's on purpose. So I think the intentionality around design matters a lot as well. Like it is it's not really a broken rule if you're still doing it with a very intentional outcome as a part of it, right?
That's the word. So the rookie will break it by mistake. The master breaks it on purpose. I
On
think that's
purpose.
the difference.
Yeah.
And I like to use the example because even when you think about percussion, if we go back to like the music example, there's usually like a tempo, but
Mhm.
sometimes they'll change that, like where it's like two after each other, like leave a space and then
Yeah.
do it because that gets you going, like or the beat drop or things like
Yeah.
that. Like
Yep.
why did you take it away?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to create a build up to this moment
Uh-huh.
where we so we get you used to the beat, we get you hooked on the beat, and then we starve you
Yes.
so that when we bring it back, we break the monotony of that emotion and get you going again.
Mhm. Yeah.
But clearly, we know exactly what we're doing because we know what it does to you, right? Like there's now a bit of like psychology sprinkled in because we
Uh-huh.
know the rules. We know what each of those are, and then we
Yes.
can do it.
Yes. Yep. 100%.
I think Timberland is one of like the great people that like breaking
Yeah.
all the rules and
Timberland's
messing
one of
things
the
up.
goats.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So, in terms of earning potential, because money is like one of the reasons why most of us do it. For a new UX designer,
Mhm.
what should they expect to make just so like they're not getting ripped off? And how much can they expect to make, like as they're growing in their career, mid-level, senior, and kind of like, and kind of like when they become, director, C-level, etc. Just to
Yeah.
kind of like help paint a picture of what it looks like.
Sure. I won't get into hard numbers, but there are people that you can go and follow and get some like hard numbers. I think there are folks on Instagram that does that very well. Because I am at Google, I won't get into the technicalities. You can check out levels.fyi though, that there's like some things online that you can look at like hard numbers for each level and each discipline. However, what I will say is the thing that I want people to take away, especially like Black and brown folks, and we are not trained to look at total compensation in the way that tech provides total compensation. When I started at Google was the first time I even had the consideration of anything remotely close to equity or stocks and all of those things like that, and understanding what it actually means for your ability to build wealth and cultivate like a future for your family is not something to be taken lightly, right? And so I think that aside from the nuances of what the numbers are and what you should look for, because all of that fluctuates anyway based on your level, your market that you're in, all of those things change. I think what I really want people to take away is the true understanding of what you should be expecting, right? So there's base salary, there's your benefits, there's your bonus, and then there's that equity piece that comes very specifically in the tech world that did not come from me necessarily when I was on the brand and agency side. And it truly, truly is something that I want more of us to not only have access to, but have an awareness of how to manage correctly, right? Because you want to get to the bag. A lot of people talk about getting to the bag, but they don't talk about like what it means to keep the bag or build the bag or double the bag,
Or
right?
what's in the
Um,
bag.
huh?
Or what's in the bag. What makes
Or
up the
what's
bag.
actually even in the bag, right? Word. And so I think that when that time comes, right? I think that definitely want to get the right accounting people in place. You want financial advisement. You don't want to try to do it all on your own. It's very important to be smart and strategic about specifically that equity piece, and make sure that you're preparing yourself to secure your future. But in layman's, yes, as you grow, it does grow. Like there are certain kind of caps that happen in the design world, like based on your levels. I think different tech places do it differently, but it's very, very rigorous in terms of the level that you're leveled at. You get promoted up through different levels, and each level has a different cap on all three of salary, bonus, and equity. All get tied into on a very like rigid level basis. So I would say do research on one, like the experience that you have, and try to like kind of gauge where you may be leveled at, and then um, go from there. And then your goal would be to, after you're in the organization, to rise up in levels and get promo and do that. It's not easy to do that, but that would be the goal for sure.
Yeah, it's super competitive at the top companies for sure. It's
Yeah,
even like it's super competitive to get in. Leveling up is a different conversation.
100%.
You
Yeah.
didn't give me the response I was looking for, but you gave me a better one. And I say that because I remember I was interviewing at a fan company, and randomly it turned out that one of my boys was also interviewing at the same time. For whatever reason, we both got interviews around the same time. None of us got the offer, by the way, but
Wow.
he put me on game that completely changed my view. So I know like how Fang does it, which is kind of like even buttressing your point even better. But I didn't know how this company specifically did it.
Yeah.
So they had a company policy where everybody's capped around the same rate. If you're like
Mhm.
at the first level or like the sixth level, for the most part, especially like in the mid ranges, maybe like the 3 to like 6, the
Mhm.
salaries are between the bases are between like 130 to 165. That's where they go. but where they make it up is in the bonus.
Hmm.
So you might see two people who are making 155, and you'd be like, how are you 3 levels higher?
Yeah.
But the package around, so they make over 4 years, for example, that's 600K. Or yeah,
Hmm.
let's say 150, 600K. But they
Hmm.
could literally be making in both equity and bonuses over that same period 100,000, even more than that. So they
Sure.
could be doing set. But I didn't know that. So literally, he was asking me like, "What would you ask for bonus?" I was going in thinking to ask for 20K,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
knowing like I could literally be shooting myself in the leg. So,
Yes.
so just like you said, it's important, get to know it, and it even helps if you can find someone at the company who can help you, like within
Yeah.
your circle, within the network. And if you
Hmm.
can't, that's where that piece you were talking about build. One of the great things that I like about tech more than anywhere else is if you didn't go to school with a doctor, you don't know a doctor in your neighborhood. It's hard to hit up doctors on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, uh, you know what? I'm interviewing at this hospital. Like, could you help me?" Tech is like that. Everybody's almost like an outsider, so everybody's willing to help everybody,
Yeah.
right? So you could, again, be specific. I think there's a whole thing about how you approach people, because there's a right and a wrong way to do it. I've seen a lot of
Mhm.
people do it the wrong way, but there's a right and a wrong way. And if you're doing it the right way, of course, you won't always get people to respond to you or give you feedback, because a lot of times you got to earn it, right? But more than most other industries, it's the one industry where people are always looking to help. So definitely
Yeah.
tap into that.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. And I get pings too all the time. Like I think, I get like young designer. When I was at AfroTech last summer, like I actually grabbed some time with some young designers. Like one dude who hit me up was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be at AfroTech. Can I grab like a half hour with you just to talk shop and talk about the industry?" And it was dope. And he brought some of his like product manager friends, and we just had like a little powwow right in the convention center. I think that that's also, I want to continue to be as accessible like that as I can, where I can be generous with my time. I always am, because I do want to empower the next generation. And a lot of the stuff is really like, it's not even hard questions, bro. Like sometimes it's really just like, hey, like I just have like a quick, I genuinely don't know the answer, but for me, it's like, oh yeah, boom, go do this, 1, 2, 3, and then that's it. Like it costs me nothing, right? And so I do kind of always welcome that. And I guess maybe saying that out loud now, I'm gonna have like, like
You just set yourself up.
I may have like set myself up, but it's all good though. Like, we'll see how it goes.
And that's why I even said that last piece, right? Because I think, again, of course, I know like there's distinctions. You're definitely one of the givers. There are people who want to give and people who don't want to give. And I don't have anything against anybody who maybe they got family or whatever. They just want to enjoy their time. They're not
Sure,
obligated to. But
sure.
even the people who want to give, I still feel like as a talent, you have to be mindful. And a
Yes.
lot of times I always say, like, you know, treat their time as high stakes, right? And
Mhm.
the more, because one of the dangers of social media is also like, I don't know if danger is the right word, but one of the things that it does is also like it cheapens access, right? Which
Yeah.
then means like people will show up and ask you for even the most random things,
Yeah.
or even in the most random way. It might be the right thing, but the most random way. For
Mhm.
example, like going to ask someone about something you can Google is a no-no, right?
Yeah.
Going to ask people things that you're just asking to ask is a no-no.
Mhm.
But you could get a lot of helpful advice if you're really grinding and putting in the work. Like a good answer could be like, you know what, I've done like this intro courses. I'm stuck between like Figma and this new tool.
Mhm.
Which do you really think I should choose, right? Because
Yep.
that's something that could be confusing. You've been there, you've used that tool maybe 10 years in a row. You're like, you know what, forget it. Like, I've done this for 20 years. I see this, I see that. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
that is a real thing that adds value. And
Yes.
them building that feedback loop, right? Because a lot of times the challenge also becomes, don't waste people's time, right? They give
Mhm.
you value. Like, are you giving them feedback and saying, oh, great, I went into Figma, you know what, I really loved it. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for recommending, and closing that loop. Because
Mhm.
6 months later, you might want to apply to this role at Google now, but
Mhm.
because you got help, but not only did you get the help, you made me feel good because you use it. Because think about it, like, you only have so much time in a day. If 100 people hit you up and you respond to everybody, you feel drained. And then
Yeah.
on the top of that, you don't even like get any feedback. Because
Yeah.
I experience that a lot, where it's like you're asking questions just to ask it, but I
Yeah.
don't really feel like you're actioning it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
by person one on one, guess what happens? Now I have like this fatigue where it's like, forget it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. A nuance I would add to that is like, and I think I'm glad that you raised this point because it is an important distinction. Like, even if I get something in my inbox, I think one way to make sure that your communication is going to resonate with the recipient is like, one, try to understand like who they are uniquely and why this question is right for them, right? Like a generic question, like, oh, like, how do I get a job in UX? Like, you could ask either Google, you could ask literally any other designer. But if you ask me specifically, like, hey, like I'm trying to transition from brand world to tech. And here's my portfolio. Do you think that, can I get your thought on whether this is properly conveying, my ability to work in tech versus working in more marketing roles? That is a very unique perspective that I could offer someone that they should be asking me, right? Like, I think that it's also good to ask the question, make it unique to the person you're asking it to, but then also present a little bit about yourself, and what you've done thus far, and the fact that this question is literally blocking you from continuing, right? So if you're asking me about getting a job, but you don't have a portfolio website, then like, why you're not, the answer that I give you, you're not even ready for yet because you haven't even done your part. You understand what I'm saying? So like, make sure that you're meeting the opportunity and meeting that conversation with preparedness, like we was talking about earlier.
You know what I was gonna say is like we're actually gonna clip this part because I think you gave like that answer is so important. And the interesting thing about it is this work that they just gave you is even much more challenging than how do I get the work, but get the job, but you're more excited to do it because you
Yeah.
feel like that's work that's not gonna waste. So how do you get a job? You can even type it in ChatGPT and send it to them and it's 2 minutes and it's done. This
Exactly.
requires work, but it's work that you're happy to do. Why?
Mhm.
Because it's like you feel like it's gonna make a change for someone.
Yes.
And that's the thing. It's like people will always help people who are on their way, but like I'll give 1 hour to somebody who's on their way, but I don't even want to waste 1 minute with someone who's not doing anything.
That's not serious. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So top three mistakes that you see people who are new in UX design making and how they can fix it.
Ooh. Um, let's see. The first one I would say is probably focusing too much on the polish and not enough on the nuance of the problem that you're solving, right? I think you got splashy tools. Again, we were talking about like motion graphics and all these like cool effects, things that you can do. And it's like, all right, but what's the point of this? Like, what are you actually trying to do when you put this in the world? What impact are you trying to have? What behavior are you trying to influence with the website or the app or the experience that you're building? Not having a good enough answer to those things and jumping into design prematurely, I think is a big mistake. And I see it kind of happen. Like people kind of rush into design without really having a fundamental like basis on the intention and the problem
Mm,
that they're even trying to solve. That's one. I think, and maybe this is less about specific young designers, but there is something that I want to caution people, um, or even just keep them aware. I won't even make it scary, but just like keep them aware in terms of like the value that you bring to the table. I think that AI is obviously changing the design landscape. I think that there has never been a better opportunity to make your ideas come to life because even with like lower barriers of entry for like being a designer, you can still like have an idea and play with some of these tools to help you at least get to some baseline of, what is a design could be, right? Um, but I don't want people to lose sight of the fact that you still have to be an expert in your craft. Like the ability to type something into any AI tool and have it spit something back out to you, like you having a discerning eye is going to let you be able to have the back and forth necessary to refine it for it to be what it's going to be. We
mm,
are we are quite a ways off from
mm,
having like a one-to-one, oh, let me use this AI thing and I'm going to get like a picture perfect app that's everything is great. There's still like that iterative piece of it, and I
mm,
don't want people to overestimate or over lean into the help that AI can give to you. These
mm,
types of tools should be um assistive in your plight. They should be almost like a battery in your back that's going to help you go faster and help you be stronger. It shouldn't be like a crutch that you can't walk without, right? Like that's the difference. I want people to use it to empower them and not to kind of like shortcut or augment necessarily the value that they should be able to bring to the table on their own.
Mm, mm.
Uh,
That is so key. I think was that what you? I think you wanted to say
no,
something.
I was going like I don't have a third one. I think that was that was the two that I got.
No, those two were really key though. Those two were really
Yeah.
key, and I know like we're even a little over time, but it's been a great conversation.
Yeah. No worries.
One thing I wanted to go back to, right, was what we said at the beginning, right, about um opportunities may be tight, right? But the flip side of that is we now have way more capacity, and you just touched on it right now
Yeah.
with AI. How should designers who are actually doing the real work, not over leveraging AI, can still use AI as a tool to maybe even start building beyond a job, right? If they don't have
Mhm.
one or they're struggling to find one, how
Yeah.
can they start to build even more and get more experience and start to, make themselves the top 20%, top 10% by
Yeah.
building extra capacity outside of design or with AI in a way to kind of like make that change?
Yeah. So I think just to go to the strategic piece for a second, because I do want people to never lose sight of the fact that like AI can help you brainstorm. AI can help you take an idea and like cultivate it into something that could be meaningful or understand the nuances around a problem that you're trying to solve. I want people to be way more curious than they are. I want people to see design as a mechanism and means of making the world better, easier, faster, smarter, more vibrant, more fun, and not just simply like I'm about to make this app for XYZ reason. Like
Mm,
step away from the pixels and step into the problem that you want to solve. Step into your
mm,
curiosity, right? Like when you
mm.
look out into the world, what are the things that you want to make better? Who are the people like in your immediate circle that has a problem that you feel like could be made easier through a digital product? What's happening in society that you feel, hey, like if only this thing existed, it would make XYZ so much easier, so much better. Tap into that. I want people to think about energetically where they feel they want to change the
Mm,
world, right? What are the opportunities to make this a better place or a more whatever kind of place for the people, right? Because you're building things for users, right? And so if your users are the general population, what population are you building for and how are you helping them? Those types of things, if you start to lean into that and cultivate like your intention and your spirit and the reason why you want to be in this design game, then the tactics of like, oh yeah, because this is how we're going to go about it and using these AI tools to make really beautiful interactive experiences almost becomes like it becomes like the mechanism that you realize the idea and realize the dream, not the dream itself.
mm.
And I want people to make sure that they're truly owning that and putting and challenging themselves to anchor their work in more of that than anything
Right.
else.
You're dropping a lot of fire on this show tonight. I really appreciate you sharing this all. Again, if you guys, if you're interested in design, I think this has been really, really helpful. Um, if you're just joining, you've missed a lot. There's been a lot, but the great thing is that you could always watch it back. Um, Typically on the show, before we wrap it up, we'll let you shout out anyone, give any last advice, or if you got a book, movie, whatever coming out, it's the time for you to shout it out. But before you do that, I also want to say Matt is also a content creator as well. So you should go check out, where can they check out your stuff?
Yeah, thanks for the plug because that's what I was going to say. On Instagram at Matt Vandrick, MattVandrick, at Matt Vandrick on TikTok, etc. And then also mattvandrick.com. I recently started a Substack. I'm gonna use my Substack for more like obviously written content, but it's not gonna be full blown tech and design. It's gonna be more like societal commentary, but through like a tech lens. And so definitely check that out too. I got a couple articles on there. It's called Curious and Inspired. And that's actually, if you notice how many times the word curious came up tonight, like I think it's the cornerstone of creativity for real.
Absolutely.
And so yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think because the more you want to know about something, the more you go down the rabbit holes, and the more rabbit holes you go into, the better you know. And usually, like information is the most powerful tool that's at a disposal. Like you can't even do what you don't know, right? Just like
Right.
I was giving the Amazon example. Like how can you even make a creative deal when you don't even know what's possible, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, so that's been the show for tonight. Wanted to thank you again, Matt, for
Thank you,
stopping by
man.
and chatting with us. And shout out to everybody for joining. Again, every Thursday, you already know how we do it. We bring in a new guest every single week to talk about, software engineering, UX design, and more importantly, their journeys, challenges, and the opportunities that they see to help anyone who's, starting at their point A in their tech career to go into where they really need to get to. That's why, we're doing Working in Tech every single week. And I started my newsletter also today, right? So to
Nice.
get, we'll do that too every single Thursday, just so that like, if you forget, always remember we're always here to do it. So sign up for that. The link is below. We'll also link Matt's handles below. Make sure if you're reaching out, you're asking thoughtful questions.
Yes, please.
But that's been the show tonight. We'll see you guys again next week. Peace.
Thanks.